Hi, I'm Evelyn, and I'm talking to another awesome woman today. Welcome, Carole Jean. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Just enjoying my cup of coffee this morning in my hotel on vacation.
Lucky you on vacation. We're all so jealous. We haven't been on vacation for like a year here at least. Yeah, but hopefully,
It's been a while for me too. So
yeah,
this was like a welcome surprise. And then, of
you
course, I
deserve
want everybody to know that I am officially today, without question, an awesome woman. And the record to beat to get camera ready from butt naked in bed, surfing the gram with your cup of coffee is 12 minutes, ladies, by the way.
it. Yes. Carole Jean, you got a little bit of a shock when you realized you were in your time zone and was like, no, I was getting ready to talk to Evelyn.
It's like, I wouldn't do this for anybody else but Evelyn.
Ah. Thank you. Well, you look camera ready, you look fab, always smiling. So would you tell us a little bit, you're doing so much really cool stuff for autistic adults. I want to talk about that in a little while, but first of all, tell us a little bit about you. You just celebrated your 47th birthday. So tell us, what was when did you realize you were autistic? What's your own story?
Well, it has, like many moms, it starts with going through the identification process with my child. My son had been struggling through preschool and kindergarten, and we had done all kinds of things. And we finally got to a, a resource, and they said, you might want to look at, and at the time, this is eons ago now, it feels like, my son might have Asperger's. And I'm like, what? What is that? I've heard it before and I kind of think I know what it is, but I'm not sure. And it took several years. We ended up driving like 2.5 hours to go to this neuropsychologist. And we went several times, went through the whole process. And at the time, this is when you would answer the questions on the computer, from the parent's perspective about your child. And as I'm reading through these questions, I'm thinking, well, I do that. I did that. And so it's sort of clicking a little bit. And as we go back, and I'm 39 at this time, and my son was 10, we go back for here's your resource, here's your report, here's everything about your child. And this darling little gray-haired man in his sport coat and his little half glasses looks at me, points his finger and says, you were missed. You're autistic. You need to come back and see me. And I was just stunned because, of course, in my very literal autistic brain, I'm thinking, nobody missed me. I'm right here. I'm in the room. Nobody missed me. You see me. That's my first response.
Sure.
Which, hint, you might be autistic if. So I, like a lot of people who are late identified, it kind of had to sit with me a little bit. It had to kind of like percolate down through all the layers of who we think we are, because, our identity has been formed all through decades. And so we think we know who we are at 39, right? Or later. So I said, okay, I guess I should go back and at least just see what this man has to say. So I went back, went through the process, and then I still took the report and put it on the, filing cabinet. And 2 years later, I went, now that I've done everything my child needs, because that was my main focus. Now that I've made sure my child got everything apparently I missed and didn't know I needed, now I need to focus on me. And at that point, I was 41. And of course, ladies, 41, we kind of take stock in a lot of things like, why does my life not look like I thought it was going to look? Why am I not achieved and done all the things I think I'm supposed to have done? And, you got all this guilt and shame and all this. I have really failed in my life. And I thought, this sucks. This really sucks. And I feel really crummy. I feel crummy about me. I feel crummy about, like, my physical health was horrible. I mean, there were just so many things. And at that point I went, yeah, it's time for me. And I got to figure out who I am and just where to go. And just honestly, it started with, I just want to feel better.
Mhm.
I just want to feel better. Because I started at 6 years old thinking about suicide, and that's not normal, apparently. My parents took me to a child psychologist. I mean, parents did everything. But in the 70s and the 80s, nobody knew. And they certainly weren't looking for it in a young girl, right? So it's not that it couldn't have been caught or picked up, but people just weren't aware. So here I am, going on 8 years later, and boy, has it been an amazing journey to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, there is such a lot to unpeel or unpack, isn't there? Because as you say, I was 37, so it was like I thought I knew who I was, and I was like, wait a minute, But that's we all have an image of ourselves, or and it's just kind of finding our way back to our authentic selves. And I love what you're doing, and you call it the Unveiling Method, which is just lovely. Because unmasking sounds like you're just taking off this one thing. It's like, oh, that's done now. It's not. It's a deep process, isn't it? So tell us a little bit about your Unveiling Method.
So the Unveiling Method is what I have created and what I named it, because there is this misconception and this false belief that many therapists are out there trying to help autistics, and they're like, okay, we need to unmask because you've been masking. And when you come to the autistic community and you learn about masking, and you're like, oh my God, I do that. I've been doing that my whole life, and I didn't know that nobody else did that, or no one did it the way that I do it, because every human, like you and I talk about, humans mask. It is a necessary tool for societal existence. But in autistics, it's a different thing. Masking and I even have a video on neurotypical versus autistic masking. They're two different things. And as an autistic late identified person, I started saying, okay, well, let me unmask. And I started peeling off these different masks because, we rack up a really hefty theatrical trunk of masks, right? Costumes, all those things. And I started to slowly peel them off. You start with the small things, like I have weird little stems that I thought were normal, but I always sort of suppress them. So I push my fingers into my thighs and I count my like even numbers and, just those kind of things. And in that process, I started to find, once I peeled off, a couple of those layers of masks, and was starting to get down more to just me showing up and being me. Throwing out Diet Coke because I really hate Diet Coke, but I had been forcing myself to drink it because everybody I knew drank it and I wanted to fit in, right? And all of a sudden, one day you're sitting at home by yourself drinking something you hate, and you're like, look at it, and it hits you, and you're just like, why am I drinking Diet Coke? This is the most disgusting thing I have ever put in my mouth. Why am I doing this? And it's those kind of things that start to happen in your life.
Yeah.
And then you realize, now that I've peeled off these masks, now that I'm sort of starting to get down to the meat of the coconut, I don't know who the hell I am. I've covered and suppressed and camouflaged for so long and pushed myself down, my needs, my thoughts, my desires, everything for so long. I don't know who the hell I am anymore. And that's where the Unveiling Method comes in, because I look at it as you're not just reintroducing yourself to you. You're not just discovering. In a lot of ways, you're just discovering for the first time who you are, what you like, what you don't like, because it's almost an adventure within itself, but you're unveiling. You're lifting this sort of fog that you've had. And you're not just relearning and unlearning, you're also exploring, and you're learning more about who you are and what you want to be, who you want to be. Because one of the greatest things that you discover in this process is joy, which we lose, freedom, which we really have suppressed, and we've shackled ourselves for so long thinking we're doing what everybody expects. And simply being able to have peace. Because I don't know about you, Eveline, but for about 4 decades, I didn't know what peace or contentment was.
You are the second awesome woman in this series so far to say that they actually experience peace for the first time, and for me too, and peace in my head, and just, not this negative voice constantly berating myself. And it's just, yeah, it's peaceful. And I think when you step back and the negative voices go away, you can actually just hear your own, you can connect to who you are. I love what you said about like lifting the fog, because that's what masking is like. It's like this disconnection. It's like you can't see what's real and what's not real and what's right for you. And we kind of disconnect from our inner selves, I think. And our, we I think we're taught to like not trust our gut and our own instincts. And I think, that has a lot to do with it. And then we start not to trust ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest steps that I think is sort of the reclamation of ourselves as late identified autistics. Because that's something that and you and I've talked about this before. It is a huge thing, because after decades of making choices and decisions and then experiencing them not working the way we thought they would, or the way that people respond to what our choices or decisions, or simply what we like or what we do, has made us doubt ourselves, and we lose trust. We lose that integrity of self. And to me, just as a person, one of the things that we all have, no matter who you are, where you live, what you've experienced in life, that self-integrity is the foundation of how we show up in the world. And being able to reclaim that, oh God, that's been a tremendous, tremendous gift. And I think that's probably been the biggest contributing factor to my joy and to my freedom and to my peace. And it's like sort of the Diet Coke thing, you just, in the unmasking, you just start with these little steps and you start to trust yourself again. And now I'm making decisions and I'm doing things without that constant thought loop going on about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? What does somebody else think? Do I need, go and researching things to the nth degree before you make, before you pull the trigger? Basically, I just sit back and say, let's ride, Clyde, let's go. I know my gut. I'm trusting my gut,
There's so much freedom in that, isn't it? It's just living your life for yourself, because, that's what we're doing for so long. We're living our lives for other people. Other people don't even probably care that much about what we're doing.
Nobody cares. And that's the really tough realization, Eveline.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, and lots of the stuff that we get caught up in, it doesn't matter. And I think for me, it was like you were saying about Diet Coke. I was like, loads of stuff. There was just, I don't know, like clothes and handbags and things that I thought I cared about, and this and that. And then I went, oh, I don't care about any of this. This was all part of, this mask and this successful picture I was creating. And I know lots of human beings do that with our symbols and stuff. But, it was just realizing that actually these things don't matter to me at all, and just, there's a great freedom in it, really. Are you frozen? Oh no. Have I
There
lost?
is. And it was.
You just froze for a second. It's okay.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. I'm on crummy hotel internet.
That's
Oh, there we go. Okay. Sometimes it may lag a second. But Eveline, that's one of the things that I think is really important, especially for someone who's just learning that they're autistic, and just knowing what that means for you as an individual. That's part of the process, and part of the Unveiling Method is learning and experiencing and really reflecting, how does autism show up in my life? What does being autistic mean to me? And just what does it look like? Because it's different for every person. Yes, we can go into the community, we have a lot of these Me Too moments, and it's so relatable, and oh my gosh, I do that too. And that is one of the greatest parts of being aware that you're autistic, is for the first time going out and finding other people.
Yeah.
Because we've been so isolated and so alone, not realizing, knowing we're different, knowing nobody really gets us and we don't really get them. And every now and then we find a friend that's probably neurodistinct like us. And so it's been the lifesaver along our journey, having maybe just that one person. But walking into a community, a digital community, and going, oh my gosh, there's millions of other people. I'm not alone, is so huge.
Huge. Really huge. And I find I have to have contact with other autistic people, even if it's just reading something by another autistic, or, you know, I have autistic friends now, so it's great, but, and so I chat to most days, but I need that, because actually I can notice my thought process going back to kind of, what will someone think if I do this? What, you know, and because it's so ingrained in us, it's been our lifetime habit, and I have to watch that. But I know when I spend time with other autistic people, you know, that's my cure for that kind of thinking. Yeah. And so if someone's interested in finding out more about what you do, Carole, it's socialauti.com, isn't it?
Yep, socialauti.com. And if you're on Instagram, it's @socialauti. You can also tune into the Mind Your Autistic Brain talk show, which is specifically geared towards late identified autistics. And that is on YouTube, as well as on any of your podcast stations. And I have a private Facebook community called Mind Your Autistic Brain.
Excellent. So there you've loads of support for people.
Yeah.
What kind of, you know, I suppose what keeps you going? Like, obviously you're giving a lot of yourself doing these kind of things. What keeps you, you know, what makes,
Yeah.
what keeps it going, or it's obviously very rewarding.
To know that I can make someone else's autism journey shorter in that learning curve.
Yeah.
And then I can help somebody know that they're not alone, and that there are other people out there, and to do it from a place of kindness, gentleness, patience, and understanding, not just for the person next to us, but for ourselves, because we've denied ourselves that for so long.
That's, yeah, patience, gentleness, kindness, and understanding. Yes, because for a lot of us, we have to learn how, you know, what those things are for ourselves. And probably a lot of us have shown those to loads of other people, and are always giving. Would you, oh, you're muted, Carole.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Josh was making racket.
It's okay. Shh, be quiet, Josh. How did you kind of find to, you know, in your own journey, in your own healing, what was, how did you find ways to maybe be more compassionate with yourself?
Ooh, this was a really tough one for me. And I'm not going to say it was easy, because I'd been beating myself up for so long, and it had become a habit. And one of the things that I really try, and that made a difference for me, so I try to incorporate it in what I do in my knowledge shares, is our brain, the neuroscience behind our brain, how our brain works. Because I'm a scientist, so I'm always going to I'm going to take things apart. I'm going to look at how they work. You know, what are the causations? What are the results, and how do things correlate? And when we're talking about habits, the human brain first seeks safety in all things. The brain doesn't care if society says it's a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes that safety means it's something you've been doing a long time.
Yeah.
So our brain wants to go to where it's comfortable, where it feels safe. Well, if you have been like I did, and were constantly berating myself for everything that I didn't do right, or that I didn't do well, or what I perceived in the stories we tell ourselves, you know, get into that, it becomes a habit. And that is one of the foundational pieces to the Unveiling Method, is to step back and observe, what do I do every day? From the time I wake up in the morning to the time I close my eyes at night in bed, What do I do? How am I being? And when you do that, you start to notice your habits, and your habits make up your life. Your
Yeah.
life is a result of your habits. And the second thing the brain seeks to do is conserve energy. And as we all know, if everybody who's ever hit burnout before knows, energy is the thing that is completely gone. Your skills and abilities start to diminish. And when you don't know you're having an autistic burnout, you think you're crazy. You think you're losing your mind. And I honestly, like, I was 2 steps from committing myself, but I had 2 small kids and a husband overseas. And I was like, I can't afford to not be here. I'm just going to have to. And I was terrified. I couldn't tell anybody. I was so scared.
Yeah.
Nobody would understand what was happening. I didn't know what was happening to me. I'm like, I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm, a mom. I'm doing all these things because I'm doing. And I never stopped to think about myself. And it was sort of that realization in that reflection that I had been so mean to myself. And I thought, I'm so giving and so generous, and I show up for everybody else, but I don't show up for myself.
Mhm.
And it become a habit. And when I reflected on that, I started to notice the pattern, because there's always a pattern in your data sets, right? And when I started to notice that, I thought, I am worthy of my own compassion. And I had to start believing that I was worthy of my own compassion. In doing that, I had to step back and start to peel off, what are the stories I've been telling myself? And are they true?
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to identify all of the crap I had been telling myself and believing about myself, they're pretty horrible things too. I mean, things no one else in the whole world, people who probably, who would want to like hurt me or hate me, would never even be that mean to me.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I wanted to preempt anybody else hurting my feelings or being mean to me. If I did it first, nobody else could hurt me.
Well, that's a
Because
good.
I'd already done it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, actually. Yeah, why we are so hard on ourselves. Is it actually a way of protecting ourselves from somewhere else? I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah. Tell us what being productive. I think we've talked about this before as well. Well, I think it is a response to trauma. Being busy, it's like distraction, but also like, I mean, I work for myself. If I could be like, right, take tomorrow off now, or take a half day. And then I'm like having a conversation with myself, justifying it. And I'm like, what am I doing? But it's like, well, I did these things now today and I'm okay and I'm ahead for next week. So I can take this time. And I know I'm doing it and I know it's old habits, but, and at least I'm aware of it. But it is from a lifetime of just doing too much, of feeling like you have to be doing to kind of be, to feel like you have worth or something like that. Would you feel like that as well, Carole, Jean?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. You and I talked back in January, and you had come off of taking a break, and I was just going into a break, and I was doing a creative rest sabbatical. And it's so funny because even when you know better and you're trying to be and do better, you still, those old ingrained habits come in. And I'm just going to tell on myself because, I just believe in showing up and being me. So in January, I sit down with my little 5x7 index cards and my color coded markers, and I am planning out the year for Mind Your Autistic Brain. I'm doing my topics, my podcast, all this kind of stuff, and I'm organizing. And I got the whole year done. I was like, oh
Wow.
yeah, I've really been successful. I have done a whole lot of planning, right? And I get into like the 3rd week of January, and something hit me. Sometimes just it's kind of like NCIS and Gibbs, and somebody slaps you on the back of the head and you're like, whoa, I was missing something. I went back and I looked at my calendar. I looked at my little index cards and all the doing that I had on there. And I went, oh my gosh, I am so, so dumb right now. I didn't put in any breaks.
Yeah.
I didn't put in vacation. I didn't put in holidays. I didn't put in anything. Everything was packed full. And I thought, okay, you got to do some self-talk here, because you can't be and you can't do if you're not first taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like I went into full on, used to being that, type A, administrator and running 10 departments and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, what am I doing? I'm not even looking at myself, and I know better. I know better.
Yeah. 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 And it's like, we're so good at like helping other people and giving people advice and here's what you need to do. But you see, and as well, I think even for me in the past few months, I have realized it isn't like a quick fix. It's not like I'll do this thing and now I'm fine. It is a constant job, and we have to constantly remind ourselves, and we have to take those breaks. And, like the whole idea of self-care, like what does self-care mean to you? Because like self-care to me would have been like, what is this? Until I realized it was just like, well, doing things that you enjoy, or taking time out for yourself and looking after yourself before you look after somebody else. What
They tell you on the airplane, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your child. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. But you see, we're not used to taking care of ourselves. So self-care is like actually an alien concept to some of us.
Yeah, it really is. And that's one of the things that's been really great. Just for my birthday, I went to the Battle House and I had a spa day. I haven't done that in like 2 years. And I used to make it a regular thing, a couple of years before that, to get a massage because it made a difference in my life. Well, things change, and I've moved all over the country in the last 2 years, major moves. And, as life evolves every day, different things come in, different things go out. One of the biggest things that's helped me just with self-care is giving myself permission to hit pause.
Yeah.
Or to even eliminate things that are no longer serving me. So in the Mind Your Autistic Brain community, what I do is on Fridays, I have what's called a Reflection Friday. And we even hashtag it so people can always go search it on Instagram or wherever. Because that is the biggest part and component to this late identified journey. It's just becoming aware. And you can't become aware of things because variables are always changing. Things are always moving. So on a Reflection Friday, that's the day that I take for myself, and I share it with others and encourage them to ask the same questions. It's what has changed this week? What have I learned about myself this week? And that's a question I ask myself every evening when I journal. It's, what have I learned about myself today? What do I know now that I didn't know 24 hours ago? And that really shifts your thinking. It shifts how you feel and look at yourself. And some days I learn that, hey, you got to get up and just go for a run. Some days you just got to play. And oh my gosh, how many of us have stopped playing, have probably never really played? I've never been much of a fun play around kind of just sit back and have a good time kind of person. That's just never been in my wiring. But that's something I'm like, that I've started to incorporate and learned how to do, because having fun means letting go.
Yeah.
And letting go means you don't necessarily have control. And I have spent 40 years honing my control skills because I'm a control loving person, right? Because when I can control my environment, I can
have to protect yourself. Yeah, yeah.
So that's just been it for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think like the whole area of self-care, and it really is to do with our boundaries and our sense of self, and that for me, it's it's something I'm very aware of. I'm writing a book at the moment on like boundaries and personal space and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, I know all this stuff, But it is, again, just kind of watching out for things or getting too busy because, and when you talked about timetabling your work for the year, it's like also realizing that other stuff's going to come in. So I'm better now at kind of going, right, here's some stuff I need to do and kind of rough timetables, and there will be other things coming in work wise, there'll be other things, stresses coming in, because if our lives are like jam packed, there's no space like to process other things, to even enjoy other things, you know what I mean? Good things come in. Yeah, and it's just about enjoying that, isn't it?
It is. And it's one of the really amazing parts of this journey is learning that where those boundaries are when you start. Boundaries keep us safe and we need them. They're healthy, they can be very good, but they're in a constant state of flux. They are not hard barriers.
No.
And when we are aware of that and when we acknowledge that going in, that boundaries are fluid for a reason, because that serves us to meet those variables and those changes in our life. And I have found probably the greatest blessing in that space, having that space, because if I am being very controlling and very rigid about what's happening in my life and my day, I'm not being open to receive the things that can come in. I won't even notice them.
Yeah.
I noticed that about myself, leading up to these types of new awarenesses. And it has been like the last year, honestly, being aware of that and just being able to go, I was supposed to do this today and it's probably just not going to get done today because this that just walked in the door or this that just showed up in my inbox, this is something pretty spectacular. And
Yeah.
if I don't acknowledge this and just really live in this moment of now, I'm going to miss out on something that is going to be a blessing to me. And then in turn, I can be a blessing to somebody else.
Yeah. Isn't it such a gift to be able to live in the now? Because when we spend our lives protecting ourselves, we're always thinking ahead. You know what I mean? We're living carefully. We're never really living in the moment. And as you say, like finding that freedom of just letting go and different ways to do that we're comfortable as well. I mean, I'm not asking anyone to start skydiving or anything.
No. Who jumps out of a perfectly good plane? Not me.
Maybe when I was 20 I might have, but not now.
Right. Back when my ADHD compulsiveness would have gone, yes, dopamine hit.
Fearless. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it is, you know what, there is, I think, just finding joy in little things. And that's the thing. It's like when I got rid of all the crap that wasn't me, I was like, I actually enjoy really simple stuff. I don't need big things, and you know what I mean, or big gestures, or it is just, and I think that's what life is made up of, all those really special moments, isn't it?
It is. And, Brene Brown is a social researcher, and she has done decades of research into courage and vulnerability and shame and guilt. And one of the things that through tens of thousands of interviews that she's done with people, one of the things that she's found when, people are talking about having lost a loved one or, having lost their health or limbs and things like that, it's people reflect, and as humans, we reflect on the little things. It's the small things that enrich our world. And I had to start stopping myself and going, what am I really being appreciative for?
Yeah.
Because gratitude really has been shown through multiple research to really help change our quality of life. So, I've got 5 days of hashtags. So Thankful Thursday is our gratitude day. And that's the day that I ask some questions about, what are you grateful for this week? What's something, even just the small things, and that we talk about the small things that really make your day. And part of the unveiling method is when you step back and you go, okay, what would your perfect day look like? I want you to craft your perfect day. I mean, money is no object, place is no object. Don't put any boundaries, parameters, or anything on yourself. Just craft your perfect day. Because I did this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, and I started reading through what my perfect day entailed, it wasn't extravagant. It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
One of those things was making coffee in the morning. I absolutely love that process. You know, I'm an early morning person. I have not always been, but I am now. I think that's my 40s talking.
Yeah.
but but I have an electric kettle and it has this blue light and it's clear. And I love to watch it as the water bubbles and the light, you know, and the pre-dawn's coming through the windows. It's not quite daylight yet. And just the smell of the coffee grounds as they go in my French press, and you feel good. It makes me just sort of appreciate what is going on.
Yeah.
What's going on as I start my day. And I thought to myself as I was reading through my perfect day that I had created and journaled and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, well, why the hell do I not do that every day? I was only saving it for like special events, you know? I'm like, why am I saving this? What am I doing by denying myself just the simple pleasure of making coffee in the morning this way?
Yeah.
That's silly. And so I thought, okay, that's something for my perfect day. Then I can realistically incorporate into my everyday.
Yeah. And it really is so simple. You know, I mean, when you talk about it like that, it is actually just putting in things that make us happy at the start of our day. Because I know, as we talked about before, you know, I'm great for a certain amount of time. And then it's like, oh, I'll just forget, or I'll get up, or I'm tired. You know, I'll come downstairs and I'll start putting on a wash and I'll feed the dog. Then I'll feed my daughter. Then I'll be like doing homework. And it's like, I'm up 2 hours. I haven't even, you know, had a glass of water or something. And it's like, you know, so now I'm you know, again, and probably after talking to you, I'll be better this week. But you know, it's like, what have I done for me? You know, so what have I done for myself so far? And like now, you know, getting into that routine of actually getting up, going downstairs, and starting your day doing something for you, it just makes such a difference. And I think definitely gratitude. Like, you know, sure, the act of thinking of something that you're thankful for actually boosts your mood, you know. So it's like, even, you know, even when we don't feel like it, even just trying to do it really does. And I find it does help with boundaries. It helps to keep a lot of other people's stuff out if we are thankful for, I think. I don't know, it actually seems to help with boundaries, but also like, because when we say boundaries, it sounds sometimes like rigid, like nothing's coming in. But I think actually you can be really compassionate, but also have those boundaries there as well, if that makes sense.
Yes, because boundaries are fluid and they're an act of self-compassion.
Mm. Yeah.
Boundaries mean I'm honoring myself. Boundaries mean I'm being compassionate with myself. So if there's too much sensory noise, if there's too much light, if there's too much overwhelm, and I know that that causes me to not be my best self and causes me distress, then I'm showing self-compassion by saying, thank you so much for inviting me to your party. I really appreciate it. I'd love to go have a coffee with you. Maybe we could get together for lunch. I'm not going to be able to make the party though. And setting that boundary for yourself, being able to say no to something, but saying yes to something else in a way that really suits you better,
Yeah.
that's self-compassion at its core. And
Sure.
it's something that we have so denied ourselves for so long, not knowing we were autistic and thinking we just had to do everything a certain way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Please everybody else. So time we pleased ourselves. Carole, thank you so much for talking to me today. Before we finish, is there, if you wanted to give any more awesome women or men or whoever is watching, one message, because I just love your positivity and your compassion. You know, it just shines through. What one message would you like us to take from today, or from you today?
You are not broken. You are not defective. You are exactly who you were created to be. Your brain and your body work in a beautiful way, in tandem, just different from others. And it is a reason. There is a reason for that difference. The bumblebee, many people look at the bumblebee and they think, oh, it shouldn't be able to fly. Its body's huge and its wings are small. And that's wrong, because when we really start to look and observe, and when you start to look and observe yourself, what was discovered about the bumblebee is that its wings don't flap up and down like birds and others. They actually float in like an elliptical forward and back circle. What happens is when the bumblebee flaps its wings in that shape, it creates a hurricane. And that hurricane is what gives it lift. It's not broken. It was perfectly designed and it operates differently than the bird, but it is exactly how it is supposed to be. And so are you.
I'm just going to take a few seconds to absorb that. I've never heard that about bumblebee before. That's such a beautiful analogy, a really lovely message. Thank you so much, Carole Jean. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And if people do want to hear any more of your amazingly positive messages, who wouldn't want to, they can go to socialautie.com and at socialautie on Instagram. And you have your Mind Your Autistic Brain on YouTube as well. Is there anything else? Have I said them all?
If anyone is interested in joining a very small, very safe community based in kindness, gentleness, patience, and understanding, because even the autistic community can be a little overwhelming sometimes. So I created this to be a safe space for everyone that wants to come from that perspective. And it's Mind Your Autistic Brain on Facebook, and it's a private community.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, Carole, I'm going to be thinking about that bumblebee now. That was just gorgeous. And you're so right. We're not broken. We're just our own perfect versions of ourselves. Carole, thank you so much again for joining me. And we'll talk to you again soon, no doubt. Thanks a million.
Absolutely. Thanks, Evelyn.
Cheers. Bye. Bye-bye.